What's shaking, cats and kittens? Thank you for supporting my podcast and my sustaining partners. I want to tell you about one of them right now, Charmington Holistics. Do you know what an apothecary is? Well, an apothecary makes and provides medicines. Charmington Holistics specializes in all natural herbal remedies and is an apothecary. So, what's ailing you? Can't sleep? Got a stomach ache? Got the blues? Well, head on over to Charmington Holistics where you can find herbal support for anything you need. A personal blended tea, herbal tonic, and supplements can offer you an alternative to that Advil bottle, while an in-house herbalist listens to your needs as well. Charmington Holistics is your source for all things herbal. Head on over to 425 South Conklin Street in Highlandtown, or visit Charmington Holistics on Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok. And Charmington Holistics is open 12 to 5 on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Head on over, check them out, tell them Rob Lee sent you. Welcome to Getting to the Truth of This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today I am interviewing a former polo player, writer, entrepreneur, and master of all things vermouth, the co-founder of the Wine Collective. Please welcome Enrique Pallares. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I'm going to mark out and be a fanboy, but I want to start off with, I read that the polo player. I can't ignore that. So polo player, world traveler. How'd you get to Baltimore? And how'd you get to Baltimore? And I'll ask you the second part afterwards.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's the real answer is a very long answer. I'll give you the short one, which is that I kind of ended up in the region because of just kind of like academia and kind of actually studying and reading and my passion for that. I was at some point doing a PhD at Catholic University in DC, and I fell in love with Baltimore specifically because I'd lived in New York City and I lived in San Francisco and I've lived in Buenos Aires and in many cities around the world. And Baltimore just reminded me of some of the best things about a lot of them. And that is that it was a very real city. Baltimore has no, I would say, like cohesive, like PR program out there. Baltimore is what it is. And there's real people living here and doing really exciting stuff. And that's really what attracted us so much about it. I'm attracted to the real, you could say.
I love it, and you're right. That's what we have here. And you've done an interview before because you answered the second part of the question within your first part answer. So points to you, sir. So you co-founded the Wine Collective with John Levenberg, rather. And you were on the most quixotic quest for quality. So define that quality. Define quality specifically in food and wine. And just give me that, because that's within the DNA and the ethos of the Wine Collective, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what united John and myself. Really, we met because I first, with my brother Felipe and with my wife, we started a winery on the Eastern Shore called Casa Carmen. And that's how we met John. John is a consultant winemaker. He's originally a guy from, Napa, California winemaker that had traveled through France and had been in New York and in a lot of different places. And when we met, was, I think, the real glue between us was two things, really. Was first just a real friendship. He's a great guy and his family are wonderful. And that's kind of the main thing. But then this other really important thing was a common vision. And that vision was a real obsession with quality, with doing something that takes no compromises, that seeks to push the envelope in every direction, that is slightly self-consuming, I think, as all great quests are, but that we really work tirelessly day and night to make the very best that we can, and what that looks like is in terms of wine is that we it's all about ingredients. It's all about only great grapes make great wine. Yeah. And you can be a fantastic winemaker, you can do whatever you want, but if you don't have great grapes and if you're not doing a style of wine that is respectful of those grapes and of the earth where those grapes were cultivated, you're not going to make great wine. And so it's a lot of kind of being aligned with that vision and really looking to burrow into that essence of those grapes and making that phenomenal wine. And in terms of food, this is, I think, where more my brother Felipe comes in, because he's kind of the one that manages the food there at the wine collective, and we kind of have this common food passion as well. But it's the same answer. It's really all about ingredients, and we take a little bit of the opposite approach that some places do, where some places will have all local food and wines from all over the world. Mm-hmm. We have all local wine that we have made, and then we have, food and mainly a lot of tinned fish and cheese and charcuterie from, Spain and Portugal and a lot of distant places, but all great ingredients.
Yeah. There's because usually if I'm there, I'm definitely getting the fish. It's like this, colloquially speaking, this fish dip that I lose my mind every time I have it. And I just remember it was these potato crisp last time, and now I'm kind of noticing the different quality on the chips that we get here that are just they're garbage, and the chips that you guys have it's just it's the simplicity is there, but you could tell that the quality of the ingredients just takes it to that higher level. And now I'm almost a snob when it comes to that. So Jose Andres has a version that's obviously is a little bit more mass produced, obviously, but I had that today and I was like, oh yeah, let me check this. Oh, just olive oil. And so I was like, oh, it's 3 ingredients and they're high quality ingredients.
Yeah, and you're totally right, and European cooking is very much obsessed with this. Especially, I think Spanish and Italian cooking are very very much obsessed with these few ingredient, few ingredients in every dish, but they all have to be really top quality. Yeah. And really, that's ultimately what it makes it. And what we try to do with it is just get these great ingredients and put them together. That's it. Yeah. I mean, there's no crazy mystery to it, but that is really what they do in some of our favorite places in the streets of San Sebastian or Madrid or Barcelona, or where it's just you eat really, really well out in bars because they are just getting great stuff, putting it together, and you eating and drinking it while having fun,
Look, you the Wine Collective is on my list. I have this. I've never been to Europe. My girlfriend has, but I've never been to Europe at all. Right, and she's been there a few different times, and whenever there's a really good kind of meal and we've done something that has culture and combines those things together, I'm like, and that's a European weekend right there. Hey, we're just watching tennis and eating like 10 fish, or we're having a conversation and having a nice beer and a library or something, but things that are kind of outside of the normal of the bar food and drink culture that's really here, but something that's more elevated. What Wine Collective fits within that for me, that experience. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. And I'll tell you what the cool thing about it is, and I guess the difference between us and say something like, the white tablecloth restaurant or something like that, that can be also, very European, a lot of kind of the French tradition of cooking and all that stuff. But what we try to do is we try to bring these everydayness to it, where, these wine is the drink of the people. And in a lot of different cultures, and this type of food is as well. So we seek to make it. That's why we seek to make it casual and as accessible as we possibly can, while obviously paying everybody from the producers through the employees to everybody what we think is a fair share, and but it's ultimately unpretentious, and that's really what we always go for, which is focus on quality and things that are really wonderful, but that have no pretense to them, and that we can always. The most important thing is that we connect and that we have a great time. And the food and the wine are there to enable that situation.
So, and I'm hearing that, and I say it very colloquially. The Wine Collective's creed is about community and breaking bread. Ultimately, so speak on the importance of the power of sharing a good meal and good wine with the comrades, with people within the community.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I will sound maybe a little bit like a broken record with this, because I think people sometimes don't realize that the food and beverage industry is not an afterthought. Mm-hmm. It is not entertainment. it is the glue of society. If you look at all of ancient European cultures, they were all built around piazzas where people would get together, and or agoras in Greece where people would get together and eat and drink and converse. Yeah. This is how civilization began, European civilization, and it is similar in the Americas and everywhere, where you realize that the real things that are happening. I mean, like from the revolutions in the '60s, or all this stuff that that all the meaningful action, meaningful change, meaningful conversations, meaningful connections, they more often than not begin at a dinner table. Mm-hmm. Begin in a kitchen, in a bar, in a cafe, and they are places of active citizenship, where people are really, really sharing, and that's what's so hard about the last couple of years with the pandemic having hit that particular part of human life so hard that it's ultimately human connection, and places of food and beverage are where people really ultimately connect with one another, become humans in the most fundamental sense of just sharing and talking. And so at the collective, I think we have that as a kind of like forefront of our mission and our vision. And what we try to do is to provide a space for people to do that, and these means interacting with people all the time. This means, collaborating with people. This means, people walking in and saying like, "Hey, how do you make wine? Yeah. Can we do this?" And I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely. There's a way that you can do it." Or from with our vineyards, it's the same way. Like collaboration is in the very DNA of what we do. Mm-hmm. I don't know if we're going to talk about more of the vineyards later, but that's kind of like another, the whole thing is built on collaboration, and that's why we called it the Wine Collective.
Thank you. Yeah. So speak on the concept of the collective and adjoining ancient traditions of the viticultural collaboration and producing Fin de Garage. What was the thinking there in bringing those two things that are kind of from different eras, right? Bringing those two things together.
Yeah, totally. I think that the old and the new are very similar. What is different is the stuff in the middle. Like organic food was always organic until it wasn't organic, and now it's organic again. Right. Right. And the same thing happens with wine and with a lot of industries, where the way that things used to be made tends to be more natural, more closer to the earth and to a human scale. The revolution of the vin de garage or of the natural wine movement nowadays, or all these revolutions, what they're doing is they're trying to push back against a sort of excessively industrialized wine industry, against a sort of sterile approach to food and land and wine. And so what we try to do is say, yes, we're part of that, but we're part of that because that is also the old way of doing things. Yeah. This is how things have been done forever, except the past 50 years or 60 years, and it's a little bit of the recovery of going back to that. And if you go to those old towns in Spain and Portugal and France and Italy and, Greece and all these places, there's a lot of places where you would see several vineyards outside a town. And then inside the town, there would be one winemaking facility. Yeah. Shared by everybody. Yeah. And so all the vineyards would kind of come and process their grapes and make their wine. Same thing would happen with olives and olive oil. You bring your olives and you would make into olive oil, and then you would take a little bit and leave a little bit as part of payment for the use of the machines, and we try to take this concept a little bit into the 21st century, and say, well, now we have the ability to have all this incredible equipment and this amazing technology, and which we embrace, but let's not lose that which is the most important about the old, which is being close to the earth and to one another. Yeah. So that's why we're going to get people together to do this, to all come together under one roof in Baltimore City and do this.
That's important. I think it's It's one of those things where I'll just say whatever the area is, let's say it's food, let's say it's culture, entertainment, things of that nature. I think you're very on point when you're saying kind of the stuff that's in the middle, like from earlier to the end, but the stuff in the middle is the stuff that's changed. And I think when you see it coming back, like let's say music for sake of argument, it'll be a period where it's like, I don't feel anything for this. I got nothing. And then it's like, it's not the way it used to be. And then when something comes out that's reminiscent of something from the past, it may be a sample, it may be a cover, it might be something that uses similar instruments, whatever. And you're like, oh, that reminds me of the thing I like. It's telling you something there. It's telling you that this guy disconnected from the source, and we really need to look at what was outside of the content being created or whatever the thing that's being produced. What was missing there? What was changed? What had somebody's fingers on it? And I think that's a key thing to kind of recognize, and that's what you all are doing.
Yeah, totally. And in that particular case, I think what happens is that really a big industry and huge corporations and this kind of like totalizing force of the economy has kind of really made everything into a product to be sold in the masses, right? And I think part of what's happening right now is that there's a lot of pushback towards that sort of, totalizing force of industry. And in the food and bev industry is kind of is very much at the forefront of that, with the whole kind of rebirth of everything organic and everything local, and trying to, really realize that unless we change the way that we're doing things, we're not going to have much of a place to live in not that long,
Sure. And I think in connection with it, like I just know that I see more and more people being connected in terms of being plant-based, being more familiar where their food is coming from, and just having more of an interest in it, because they're seeing like, oh, wow, we were not touching anything. I just remember here, people weren't driving, weren't going anywhere. It's like, oh, things are growing fast. Wow, those are ducks right there in my neighborhood. Like there's so many changes. It's like, yeah, even with a little less input or influence from us, things are improved. So I think that can be done from the standpoint of not having so much involvement from these big companies and, implementing things. It's like, oh, here's some GMO wine. I was like, don't touch that. Don't give me those grapes. So tell me more about being on, well, is this true? You're on the board of directors for the Maryland Wineries Association.
Yes, this is true. One of the many things
many hats. So what does that entail? And tell me about that experience and being on the board.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, the Maryland Winery Association is a fantastic group. In part because there's an incredible, it's a great group all around, but there's a one person that I think deserves a lot of the credit, and his name is Kevin Addix, and he has a group called Grow and Fortify, and he has helped a lot of industries, like kind of the wine industry and the beer industry and the spirits industry to really kind of to become local industries, because these were industries that were completely co-opted by very, very large national brands. And there has been a lot of laws that have, up until not that long ago, there were, and up until 2010, actually, you couldn't basically have a small winery in Maryland because you were not allowed to sell directly to customers. You had to live within that 3-tier system that is, a dinosaur from the Prohibition era. Yeah. But basically what it is, it's basically a group that we look for ways to improve our growing conditions and the quality of our wine, and are very kind of legislatively active to make sure that we are allowed to do our business, and that no laws are passed that are detrimental to the business, and that we are simply allowed to continue creating this amazing local wine industry.
I remember probably 2010, maybe 2011. I just thought it was really odd because I was just getting into wine then. I was buying those. I think this is the early advent of getting that subscription box, and you figure out like what you're into and all of that. I just remember it was a hassle kind of having it shipped. And I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. I was like, I can go over there and get something that's not really that good from like a store like nearby, but
Yeah.
I want to be diverse or what have you. I was one of those guys that had the like the magazine with the like the Burko ham or what have you, all of the different stuff. Like, oh, let me bring this stuff in. Let me try some. I have a refined palate. I'll just say that, and let me try different things. And I just remember it was a bugaboo to try to get stuff in here, and it's very limiting.
Yeah.
And you don't know what you like until you've tried more things. And I use food, I use art as a surrogate for travel.
Sure. Of course. Yeah. 100%. He has that ability. He has the ability to do that.
So masters all things vermouth. Let's talk about that a little bit. And I want to key in on this because I'm picking your brain right now. What well, tell me about that in general speaking, but definitely include what makes a good vermouth.
Yeah, of course. Well, this is my the core of my passion in the food and bev industry. I absolutely love vermouth. One of the reasons why I love vermouth is because vermouth is the meeting place between the winemaker, the distiller, the chef, and the wizard or the witch doctor. It's like, because I mean, with vermouth, you're using all these herbs. Sometimes you really kind of go through kind of dark paths. I mean, looking for all these medicinal herbs and all this stuff, but basically what vermouth is a fortified aromatized wine. So what you have is you have a base wine, and then you have a distillate, often of that wine. And then, so that distillate is kind of a high alcohol spirit, and you put a lot of kind of your secret combination and recipe of herbs and botanicals into that, and that creates a very powerful extraction, kind of like bitters. If you try like Angostura bitters, that's exactly kind of what it is, and then you blend that back with the wine, right? What makes a good vermouth is a perfect balance between acidity, sweetness, and bitter. Mm. If any of those things is out of whack, you have a product that is too much of something, and something that is too bitter or too sweet or too acidic. Nobody wants that. But when you have that perfect triangle, you really that balance does magic in your mouth. And what's cool about it is that you have all these layers in vermouth, right? Because it's wine, but it's also all these other botanicals that are added to it that are just create a sense of real transcendence in the palate. Yeah. that you continue to taste things, and you taste things that are in your food and that are in your wine, and it really kind of unites all of these culinary worlds into one.
You're making me a vermouth man. I the way you put it out, I was like, oh, you said that that was just great. It's just, are you under big vermouth? Are you working under vermouth? What's happening here? Yeah. And so vermouth is on my next to buy list or what have you. I've only had it. I haven't had it in a while. So I think as I've gotten older, I'm in my mid 30s now. I'm like, all right, I'm a little bit more refined, put on my ascot jacket and, be able to try some great vermouth.
Yeah. But, one of the things that happens with vermouth is that often people, it is a wine. So you got to treat it as a wine, and it'll last longer once it's open, longer than a wine because it has a higher alcohol level. But it's also, sometimes people's only experience of vermouth is having opened a bottle of often cheap vermouth and having made a cocktail and then using it again like 2 years later after it's been sitting on the kitchen counter and the liquor cabinet, and it obviously has gone bad, So I think that's one important thing, which is that vermouth does have to be treated as a wine, more than as a spirit.
Noted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be picking some up from, because I have a bottle of I know I have a bottle of wine from the Wine Collective in my home, so I'm gonna add a bottle of vermouth because I believe you all have some on site.
Yeah, no, come on in. We'll give you. Well, we have our vermouth rosé, which anybody can get, but we're about to release in the next couple of months our red sweet vermouth, and I might be able to sneak a taste of that for you.
That sounds great. And you said the magic words because literally the only wine that we really drink at this point is rosé, me and my girlfriend, and she's the one that hooks me on it. So she's like, "Oh, is there rosé involved?" That's literally her energy all the time.
Perfect.
So let's talk about this combination here, right? Let's talk about it in terms of like a signature dish. So obviously you're doing just really great stuff, really getting back to source within food and bev. So what would that signature dish look like for you, and accompanying like drink? What would that look like for you within food and bev that maybe represents you? Like, what does that look like? Is it a fine vermouth and a dish? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, totally. So there's this wonderful model of kind of type of place in Spain that is called the vermuteria. It's a vermouth bar. You go and you have a vermouth on tap, just like we do at the Collective. That's kind of the vibe that we try to communicate. But what's amazing about that is that it's a place that you're eating amazing tin fish and just, drinking bottle after bottle of cold vermouth just on the rocks with a splash of sparkling water, a twist of orange, and an olive. And that, I think, paired with some, charred octopus, or with anchovies, which are fantastic. We're big anchovy evangelists, and we've been known to convert many people because most people also say haven't had very good ones, but it's another dish that's incredible, and obviously just amazing cheese and charcuterie. Spanish jamon is the Italians will have to forgive me, but it's in a different category than prosciutto.
I mean, we love it. We're like literally, I mean, we do our own version when we're doing the entertaining. We're very snobbish, and but we just know what we like, right? And I just remember it was one weekend where I know my girl had like a really rough week, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go there. I went to some specialty cheese shop and I bought like $200 worth of cheese. I was like, I'm going to make you a charcuterie whole situation. And it's always a hassle because she's pescatarian. So it's like, all right, the ham is going to be for me.
Yeah.
So that's literally the setup these days, but which makes, I think, your space like very advantageous. It definitely hits our sensibilities. So awesome. I got two more questions before I get to the rapid fire ones. If you had the opportunity, who, living or dead, would you want to work with, whether it be, hey, we have this collaborative project we're working on, or, hey, you know what, this person has a really good take on food culture. I want to definitely pick their brain.
Yeah, I mean, specifically in the food industry, because, I could also go kind of poetic on this one, choose a few dead writers and philosophers. But in terms of food, I mean, I think like the Adrià brothers, Ferran and Alberto Adrià, which became famous for the restaurant El Bulli, and just kind of like completely revolutionized cooking, are some, very much high up in the list. That's where Jose Andres got his early start and so on. I think there's something about, so I think probably I would pick those guys to kind of work with and learn from, but there's many others, I mean, Spain is really a hub of both very traditional and very avant-garde modern cooking. So you kind of find all those places there, and all around being completely obsessed with what's great in life, with food and drink. So yeah, anybody really.
Wonderful. Now this is the last one. This is one of my new Baltimore questions. From your vantage point, what is one thing that Baltimore does exceptionally when it comes to that food, drink, and environment kind of cohesion? And what is something that you want to see improved? It's like we're looking at that, but we're not quite there yet. So what's something that we do well here, and what's something that you're like, we can improve that?
Okay, so these are tricky one because I don't want to offend people, of course. So I'll say I mean, I think there's something really special. Baltimore's food and bev scene is almost it's almost underground when you talk about it in the context of the rest of the country. You know.
Yeah.
When people here in Baltimore, I think they often don't realize how phenomenal the food and bev scene is here. Places that are really, really special and doing something, truly fantastic. There's so many of them, and that their owners are working there every day, and really places that are as what I said at first, which is very, very real. It seems that people here are incredibly passionate. These are not large corporate groups that are, investing millions and millions of dollars into having 20 or 30 restaurants, but they are really restaurants driven forward by people who are incredibly passionate, who are willing to enter these very unprofitable industry, all with the objective of really making something beautiful that people can eat and drink. There's I mean, I could name so many examples that I kind of don't even want to get into it, but there's a lot of great, fantastic places for both, refined cocktails, cuisines from many different places, and places that use all local ingredients, to just more casual places. I mean, there's all sorts of really kind of hidden gems in Baltimore, and what I think we could do better is I mean, I guess this is the flip side of it, right? When cities get too clean, when cities get too polished, they often lose this very real aspect to them. I mean, especially think about New York in the 80s and New York nowadays, and think about how that looks in relationship to Baltimore or to Philly and to DC, and you start getting kind of like a profile of how where cities are, and I think Baltimore, by being somewhat behind in that level of, I guess, development in relation to specifically to New York and probably DC is also more real. There's more stuff happening here that is not controlled by any corporate forces. But what we could do better is we could also clean up our act a bit sometimes, and have just a place that is very easy for people to come in and enjoy these secret food scene that we have here that is so phenomenal, that should be and is at the level of any of the best places in the country, the best cities in the country.
Yeah, that's totally legit. Definitely with that comparison to just it's almost like the hipster version of a place. It's like, before it got cool, before they sold out, cut their hair.
Yeah, that's right. And I feel like that's where we are in Baltimore, so we're also real. We're also, it's also great. But at the same time, I think that everybody would be a little bit better off if just things were maybe just a tad better,
Yeah. And I think just having that attention here is a piece of it, because a lot of times people see something and then it's hard to stop, but nobody wants to really work to move it in that direction. But Some people have, but yeah, we're on the same page, I think. And so I want to hit the rapid fire questions. I've added one, maybe two, since we've been talking, because I had to modify one because you're a book reader. So I had to change that question a little bit. So the way that rapid fire works is just, you don't have to provide any extra context unless you really need to have that in there. But pretty much whatever you said the answer is what the answer is. It's like, look, all right, this is my favorite movie. I don't know what else to tell you. All right. First one, red or white?
Red.
Favorite book that you've read in the last year? See how I had to trim that one down? It's like, so many. It's like naming a child. What do you mean?
Grape, Olive, Pig by Matt Goulding.
Black truffles or white truffles?
Black truffles.
Favorite cocktail featuring vermouth?
I think the Negroni is king, although there is one called Marianito Preparado, which is kind of like a Spanish version of the Negroni, which is basically a vermouth heavy Negroni. So I'll take that one. I'll take the Marianito.
So the last two, so you're originally from Ecuador.
Indeed.
What's one Ecuadorian food that you would recommend to someone who knows nothing about the cuisine?
Well, the best food in the whole entire universe, which is ceviche, fish ceviche.
Yeah. Okay, you're selling a ticket right there. Now, I think everyone has a thing. This is the last one. Everyone has a thing that they say when they're drinking, like to your health, things of that nature. What is your kind of toast? What is cheers for you? What is your toast?
Oh, that's an excellent one. I would just say, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, for us being together, blessed is a space between us that allow us to be together and to enjoy this company and to have this time where nothing can separate us. And that's what's so fantastic about any night and any table and any drink and any food, that it can be shared.
That's great. I felt like I professionally wrapped that up right there. I felt really good about that one. And thank you for sharing that. So I'm pretty much out of my questions, but I want to invite you to plug away. Where can they stop by to have a drink? Try this very vermouth forward Negroni you're talking about. Maybe you can have that slid on there, and website, all of that good stuff. And thank you so much for being on the pod.
Yes, of course. No, and thank you for having me. Really, it's great to be here. Thanks for also for noticing what we're doing, which I think is very special. It's a particular model, not just in Baltimore, but in the country. There's not a lot of places that are doing what we're doing. I mean, now you see vermouth bars popping up in New York and DC a little bit, but we really are ahead of the curve here, and I think that's meaningful, and it shows also the kind of people that Baltimore attracts. So thank you so much for inviting me. I would say in terms of just sharing with people, kind of our website is www.winecollective.vin, VIN, like wine in French. It's pretty easy. You can go there and just order online. We do free shipping in all of Maryland and DC. So you can order your wine and wait a couple of days and it'll get to you. We have an awesome wine club where we do a pairing tasting dinners at least once a month with the winemaker, and you get to taste some like half fermented juice and a lot of really other cool things. You get to learn a lot. We also obviously are regularly open. We're open like 6 days a week from Tuesday to Sunday for food and drinks. And I think it's meaningful that people come because you really get to see where your wine and your vermouth and your food are made. I get to, me or John or Felipe or somebody there can show you, right there, that tank is where this wine was made, and it tastes in this particular way because of this reason, and so on. And so it's not just eating and drinking, but it's a cool learning experience. Social media, we do both Instagram, Facebook and stuff. It's the Wine Collective Baltimore. We communicate with our followers a lot that way. And I would say just kind of, join the movement and discover this crazy world of vermouth and aperitif wines in general, which is, it's really kind of a whole way of life. It's about being with friends more often, eating and drinking, perhaps less total amounts in one sitting, but more often, it's about just going out for one or two vermouths every day, and that will really increase your quality of life. And I think this is what people do in the Southern Mediterranean. And that's why they love it so much, but so just kind of to invite everybody to really join the movement of vermouth and of the Wine Collective.
I love to hear it. So thank you. And I'll do my sign off. So for Enrique Pallares, I am Rob Lee saying that there is wine, vermouth, good times, community in and around Baltimore. You just have to look for it.